We're going to read about the phases of cell cycle. A typical eukaryotic cell cycle is illustrated by the human cells in culture. These cells divide once in approximately every 24 hours. Okay. However, the duration of cell cycle can vary from organism to organism and also from cell type to cell type. Yeast, for example, can progress through the cell cycle in only about 90 minutes. Now we can see that we have taken a human cell in a culture where it is dividing. Now we can see that it takes almost 24 hours for a cell to divide into two. Now this duration of cell cycle can vary according to different type of cells or organism to organism. Here an example is given in NCERT, which is yeast. Yeast take 90 minutes to divide. Now, cell cycle is divided into two basic phases, interphase and M phase. What is cell cycle? Cell cycle is which includes the growth of the cell and also the dividing phase. It consists of two parts, interphase and metaphase, M phase, mitosis phase. The M phase represents the phase when the actual cell division or mitosis occurs. M phase is that phase in which the cell division is occurring. And interphase represents the phase between the two successive M phases. In this, the cell prepares itself for division in interphase. It is significant to note that in the 24-hour average duration of a cell cycle of a human cell division proper lasts for only about an hour. So in 24 hours, we can see that only 1 hour is for M phase, mitotic phase. 1 hour. While 95% of the time, it is for the interphase. 23 hours. This data is important. Cell division lasts only about 1 hour. The M phase starts with nuclear division corresponding to the separation of daughter chromosome, karyokinesis, and usually ends with the diffusion of cytoplasm. So it starts with nuclear division and it ends with cytoplasmic division. The interphase, though called the resting phase. Why it is called as the resting phase? Because in this no division is occurring. Is the time during which the cell is preparing for division. It is preparing for division, but no division is actually occurring in interphase. So that is why it is called resting phase. By undergoing both cell growth and DNA replication in an orderly manner, division by undergoing both cell growth and DNA replication in an orderly manner. In interphase, cell growth and DNA replication occurs with orders. Like first cell is grown, then DNA replication occurs, then in G2 phase again there is cell growth. Now interphase is divided into three further phases. G1 phase, S phase and the G2 phase. S phase is also known as synthesis phase, as DNA synthesis takes place in this. Now about G1 phase. It corresponds to the interval between mitosis and initiation of DNA replication. Initiation of DNA replication, it is S phase, in which DNA replication occurs. So here we can see in the diagram, after M phase and before S phase is G1. Now during G1 phase, the cell is metabolically active and continuously grows but does not replicate its DNA. In this, cell is doing its function and growing, but there is no replication seen in this phase. Now in synthesis phase marks the period during which the DNA synthesis or replication takes place. S phase is where DNA synthesis takes place, or we can say replication. During this time, the amount of DNA per cell doubles. Amount gets 2C to 4C. If the initial amount of DNA is donated as 2C, then it increases to 4C as it's doubled. However, there is no increase in the chromosome number. If the cell had diploid 2N number of chromosome at G1, even after S phase, the number of chromosome remains the same, that is 2N. Here is how. In G1, chromosome is present like this. A single chromatid is present. And after S phase, it is present as this. So here, the chromosome number is still same, as we still consider this as 1 chromosome. And this one too as 1. Number of chromatid is 2 here. Here it is 1, but number of chromosome in both of them are 1. Now, in animal cell, during the S phase, DNA replication begins in the nucleus and the centriole duplicates in the cytoplasm. As we know that DNA is present inside the nucleus, so replication also occurs there and centriole duplicates in the cytoplasm. During the G2 phase, protein are synthesized in preparation for mitosis, while cell growth continues. Now, as we can see that amount of DNA is doubled. So, we need the cell to grow. So, in G2 phase, cell growth occurs, and also there are some proteins which are needed during mitosis, which are synthesized in G2 phase. Now, some cells in the adult animals do not appear to exhibit division. There are few cells which never divides, like heart cells, and also we can take as neurons, nerve cells, and many other cells divide only occasionally as needed to replace cells that have been lost because of injury or cell death. And there are certain types of cell division which occurs occasionally. For example, we can take the example of liver. If a liver is 40% cut out of 60%, it regrows itself by dividing the cells. So it is occasionally. These cells do not divide further, exit G1 phase to enter an inactive stage called quiescent stage. Now the cell which does not divide does not need to replicate its DNA. So it exits after phase G1 and enters into a quiescent phase or stage which we call as G0. Now cells in this stage remains metabolically active. This is an important line. Cell here is metabolically active but no longer proliferate, which means no longer divide, unless called on to do so depending on the requirement of the organism. So it can also divide, but it depends on the requirement. Now, in animals, mitotic cell division is only seen in the diploid somatic cells. Mitosis is only seen in diploid somatic cells. However, there are few exceptions to this where haploid cells divide by mitosis. For example, in male honeybees. Against this, the plants can show mitotic division in both haploid and diploid cell. Yes, plant shows in both, as we know that gametes in plants are formed by mitosis. From your recollection of example of alteration of generation in plants, identify the plant species and stages at which mitosis is seen in haploid cells. You can see it in the chapter of flowering plants, right? Yes, in that.